Today, we begin in the middle of a moment many immigrants fear. A funding deadline that Democrats had delayed, debated, and dismissed. A sudden silence. A bright red warning light flashing across Homeland Security systems. An anxious agent asking questions that sound simple, but aren't. This deadline didn't unfold over weeks. It unfolded in 72 hours. 72 hours that could freeze your green card application. 72 hours that could halt your asylum hearing. 72 hours that could stop ICE enforcement in its tracks, or accelerate it beyond anything we've seen. One wrong assumption here, and you could miss the window that protects your family tomorrow. What Congress did crossed a line that DHS hoped would hold, and when that line broke, immigration experts did not hesitate. They responded with urgency, precision, and warnings so sharp they cut through the political noise. Most people panic in this moment. They make the same mistake. They fall straight into the trap. But today, you're going to do something different. For 3 weeks now, there had been signals, not from official press releases, not from White House briefings, just signals, that Democrats in Congress were preparing something unprecedented. Democrats have been strategic, yes, but also increasingly aggressive in that approach. Their actions followed a rhythm, a calculation, almost a countdown. But what triggered concern in Washington and among immigration attorneys this week was that the pattern suddenly went silent. Experts who monitor congressional funding recognize the indicators. The closed-door meetings, the delayed committee votes, the refusal to release draft language, the sudden media blackout. And when Congress goes quiet, something loud is coming. Budget analysts noticed something else. The language being discussed behind closed doors wasn't just about dollars. It was about operational authority. It was about whether ICE could continue enforcement at current levels. It was about whether CBP could process entries at the border without interruption. It was about whether USCIS could keep approving applications, or whether everything would simply stop. For immigrant families waiting on work permits, this wasn't abstract. For asylum seekers with court dates scheduled, this wasn't political theater. For workers on H-1B renewals, this was survival. The clock was ticking, and nobody was telling the public what would happen when it hit zero. Early Thursday morning, Department of Homeland Security officials detected what they described as critical budget exposure, including contingency planning language not seen in over 15 years. These are actions Congress only takes when signaling something specific. A full government shutdown, a selective agency freeze, or targeted defunding of immigration enforcement. Observers weren't sure which one applied, or whether all three did at once. But one thing was clear. Congress was changing posture, and when that happens without explanation, DHS pays attention. Behind the scenes, immigration lawyers began receiving quiet alerts. Not official memos, not press releases, just phone calls. Emails marked urgent, text messages from colleagues inside the system saying the same thing over and over. If you have applications pending, file them now. Because after Saturday, nobody knows what happens next. The warning issued by immigration policy experts today was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was urgent. Source after briefing described the congressional move as reckless, destabilizing, and most importantly, operationally catastrophic for families already inside the system. But strategy only works if the other side hesitates. Democrats did not. Their response was among the most aggressive funding blocks seen in modern immigration policy. They weren't just withholding money, they were attaching conditions. Conditions that would limit ICE detention capacity. Conditions that would restrict deportation flights. Conditions that Republicans called unacceptable. And when both sides call something unacceptable, the people caught in the middle are immigrants. Today, congressional sources confirmed that Democrats launched funding restrictions targeting ICE operations, including detention facilities that had recently been expanded for what analysts believe was increased enforcement activity. They acted before Republicans could force a clean vote. They targeted detention budgets. They targeted transportation funding. They targeted case processing systems connected to asylum adjudication. This wasn't symbolic. It was actionable. And that's what made the warning so urgent. Because when funding stops, the system doesn't pause politely. It fractures. Applications sit untouched. Hearings get postponed indefinitely. People in detention stay there longer because there's no money to process their cases. Officers work without pay. And when that happens, mistakes multiply. For anyone with an immigration case right now, this is the moment where preparation separates survival from catastrophe. Inside USCIS field offices, the tension is palpable. Officers are being told to prepare for what's called a lapse in appropriations. That's government language for, we don't know if you're getting paid next week. When that happens, essential services continue. But what counts as essential? Green card interviews? Maybe. Work permit renewals? Possibly. Routine biometrics appointments? Probably not. And here's the part nobody talks about. When USCIS stops processing applications, your case doesn't just pause. Your legal status can expire while you're waiting. Your work authorization can lapse while your renewal sits in a pile marked non-essential. You can lose everything. Not because you did anything wrong, but because Congress couldn't pass a budget. At the border, CBP is preparing for operational chaos. If funding lapses, agents still show up, but support staff don't. The people who process asylum claims? Gone. The people who run background checks? Gone. The people who coordinate with ICE on transfers? Gone. What that means in practice is simple. Processing slows to a crawl. Wait times explode. People who would normally be released with a court date get held longer because there's nobody available to complete their paperwork. And when people are held longer, facilities overflow. When facilities overflow, conditions deteriorate. When conditions deteriorate, legal challenges multiply. And when legal challenges multiply, the entire system bogs down even further. It's a cascade, and it starts Saturday. ICE enforcement faces a different problem. Without full funding, detention capacity drops. That sounds good on paper. Fewer people detained. But the reality is more complicated. Because ICE doesn't just stop enforcing. They prioritize differently. And when budget constraints force prioritization, the people who get targeted are the ones easiest to remove. People with final orders. People without legal representation. People who don't know their rights. The people who fight their cases, they stay in the system longer. The people who can't fight, they're gone before the funding even resumes. That's not justice. That's triage. Immigration courts are already operating under crisis conditions. Backlogs exceed 3 million cases. Some hearings are scheduled 8 years out. Judges are handling 400 cases each. The system is barely functional even with full funding. Now imagine what happens when that funding drops. Hearings get canceled, not rescheduled, canceled. You get a letter 6 months later with a new date 3 years away. Your lawyer's retainer runs out, your witnesses move, your evidence becomes stale. Your life stays frozen while Congress argues about billions of dollars that have nothing to do with your case. And the cruelest part? You still have to check in with ICE. You still have to report your address. You still have to follow every rule. Because if you don't, they'll issue a deportation order in absentia, meaning without you present. And the next time you interact with any government system, you're detained. Legal experts are telling clients the same thing across the country. If you have an application ready, file it before Saturday. If you're eligible for any benefit, apply now. If you're waiting on a decision, follow up immediately. Because the window is closing. And once it closes, nobody knows when it opens again. Some people are asking whether this is political leverage, whether Democrats are using immigration funding as a bargaining chip for other priorities. The answer is yes. That's exactly what's happening. But understanding the politics doesn't change your reality. Your green card application doesn't care about political strategy. Your asylum case doesn't wait for bipartisan compromise. Your work permit doesn't extend itself while Congress negotiates. You're the one who pays the price. So what should you do right now? First, Check the status of every pending application. Log into your USCIS account. Verify that all documents are uploaded. Confirm that your case is actively being processed. If anything is missing, submit it immediately. Second, if you have a hearing scheduled in the next 30 days, contact your attorney. Ask whether the court has issued any continuance notices. Ask whether you should still appear even if funding lapses. Get that answer in writing. Third, if you're on work authorization that expires soon, file your renewal now. Don't wait for the 90-day window. Don't assume automatic extensions will apply. File now. Fourth, if you're in removal proceedings and haven't filed for relief yet, talk to a lawyer today. This week, not next week, because if the system freezes, your options freeze with it. Fifth, document everything. Every conversation with USCIS, every letter from ICE, every court notice, every receipt. Because when funding resumes and the system restarts, you'll need proof of where your case stood. The people who survive immigration crises aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the most preparation. They're the ones who know their case number by heart, who have copies of every document in 3 different places, who understand that the system isn't designed to help them, it's designed to process them. And when processing stops, only the prepared survive. Here's what immigration attorneys aren't saying publicly, but are telling clients privately. This funding fight isn't really about immigration. It's about leverage for other policies. But immigration is the pressure point both sides are willing to use. That means immigrant families become collateral damage in a negotiation that has nothing to do with them. Your green card application becomes a bargaining chip. Your asylum claim becomes a political football. Your future becomes leverage. And the worst part? When the fight ends and funding resumes, nobody apologizes. Nobody compensates you for the delays. Nobody restores the time you lost. The system just restarts. And you're expected to be grateful it came back at all. Saturday's deadline isn't just about money. It's about whether the immigration system functions or fractures, whether applications move forward or freeze, whether families stay together or get separated by bureaucratic collapse. For people watching from outside the system, this looks like politics. For people inside the system, this is survival. The difference between those two perspectives is everything. Some analysts believe Congress will pass a short-term extension, a continuing resolution that funds agencies at current levels for another few weeks while negotiations continue. That's the optimistic scenario. But even that creates chaos, because short-term funding means short-term planning. USCIS can't hire new officers. ICE can't expand programs. Courts can't reduce backlogs. Everything stays frozen at current capacity while the population needing services continues to grow. It's a slow-motion crisis instead of an immediate one, but it's still a crisis. The pessimistic scenario is worse. Congress fails to agree. Funding lapses. DHS operates under contingency plans that prioritize enforcement over processing. Deportations continue while green card approvals stop. That's not speculation. That's exactly what happened during previous shutdowns. And if you think your case is safe because you followed every rule, filed everything correctly, and hired a good lawyer, you're right to do all that. But it won't protect you from systemic collapse, because when the system breaks, everyone suffers. The people with strong cases and the people with weak cases. The people with lawyers and the people representing themselves. The people who've been waiting 6 months and the people who've been waiting 6 years. The system doesn't discriminate when it fails. It just fails. As the weekend approaches, more details will emerge about what Congress hoped to achieve. But one thing is already clear. Knowing this right doesn't make you a criminal. It makes you smart. It means you're prepared. It means you're protecting your family. Check your applications today. Contact your lawyer tomorrow. Don't wait for the deadline to pass and then wonder why your case stopped moving. Share this video with your family. It might save their life one day. Subscribe to USA Immigration Path for more protection. We protect you with real information as the next phase unfolds.